Without further ado, we have two dynamic speakers today. They are part of our Reach ministry, which is our young adults ministry. Um, they're both, one is doing his master's, and one is a junior, and they both are doing dynamic things. Spartan Pride, okay? And they're both doing dynamic things for the kingdom. It is without further ado that I want to bring up our first speaker. Her name is Lauren Pickett. Can you give a
Thank you, thank you. Thank you guys for the very warm welcome. I mean, I think I found my biggest fans over here, but I want to say thank you to everybody for coming out today to listen to my speech here, and shout out to Antonio for approaching me with this. And thank you, thank you, thank you. So he told me I have around 10 minutes. So we're gonna see if I can fit this in here. So Antonio came to me and he said that he wanted Tyler and I to speak today and to make it something that we're passionate about and something that hits home. So today's speech is going to be about reaching your full potential and understanding your intrinsic value. So every single day we all face situations and challenges that challenge our sense of self-worth and make us wonder and question our own potential, whether it's school or relationships or whatever it may be, right? It can feel like we're battling giants that tell us we aren't enough. So most of us, I'd say actually probably all of us, know the David and Goliath story, but I'm just going to come up here and say it one more time. So quick summary. In the Bible, David faced Goliath, a giant warrior over 9 feet tall who taunted the Israelites for 40 days. While no one else had the courage to fight him, David, a young shepherd, stepped up, confident that God was with him. He faced Goliath with 5 smooth stones and a sling, and in one shot struck him down. And this story is very powerful because it's a lesson on courage, faith, and knowing your value. So in many ways, we all have our own Goliaths, which are situations or thoughts or circumstances or whatever they may be, appointments, whatever, right, that seem so big and overpowering, right? But what if we approached every situation the way that David approached Goliath? So David never approached Goliath and said, "Ooh, I hope I can win. I don't know how I'm feeling." He knew that he had God on his side, so he was able to step into his power without fear and without hesitation. And just like David, right, we have our own battles, but luckily we're not fighting 9-foot tall giants, right? I hope we're not, right? That'd be kind of crazy. You guys should record that if you are. I want to see it. So, quick fun fact for you guys, and it was mind-blowing for me, but you don't have to answer out loud, just answer in your head. But if I asked you how many thoughts the average human being has every single day, what would you say? Maybe a couple hundred, a couple thousand? Well, the average person actually has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. That is according to the National Science Foundation. And they also reiterate that 80% of those thoughts are negative and 95% are repetitive from the day before. So it's no wonder that with these statistics that many of us struggle with low self-esteem, questioning our own potential and questioning our own value, and they also tell us that about 85% of people around the world struggle with this, right? So here's a great analogy for you guys, right? Consider how all of us look outside of ourselves for external validation, right? Right, we want the Prada shoes, right? And we don't really like the Prada shoes. We don't think that they're comfortable, and they're a little clanky, and they make kind of weird noises when you walk around, but at least they say Prada on the side, right? Or you're driving down the highway in your Lamborghini, and you don't really like the seats because you have to kind of duck down, and it makes your back hurt, but at least it's a Lamborghini, right? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Right? So when people are shopping, right, they're often buying more than the product, right? So they're buying the brand. And it's about the feeling of power, confidence, and status that those brands project, right? There's nothing wrong with driving down the highway in your Lamborghini wearing Prada shoes. I hope I can be that rich one day. That'd be great. That's right. Right? But the issue is that we're looking to these outside objects and these outside views. We'd rather look successful than actually be successful, and we'd rather make it appear that we're confident when we're not really confident, right? So it's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole, right? The more water you're pouring into that bucket, the more water is spilling out because of that hole at the bottom. But if our value is only based on these things, then we're building our self-worth on something external, right? Something that can change, something that can fade, or something that can be taken away. So it's important that um, the struggle with self-esteem begins when we allow our self-worth to be dictated by external validation as opposed to our own intrinsic value that we all know that we have and that God tells us that we have. So shifting back to David, David's mindset is a great example of positive self-talk. He didn't go into battle saying, like I said previously, that he hopes he wins and that he's doubtful, right? Instead, he declared boldly that he would defeat Goliath because God was on his side, right? And imagine if we all spoke to ourselves like that, right? Affirming who we are and what we're capable of. So how do we shift away from those 80% negative thoughts and focus on something greater? Well, it's sort of simple in a way, right? Because the answer lies within positive self-talk. And when you read scripture that shows you your true potential and explains your true potential, that's when you can really shift into that positive self-talk. Here's another statistic for you guys. Research from the American Psychological Association suggests that how we talk to ourselves can significantly impact our mental health, right? There's a strong correlation between negative self-talk and increased levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. On the other hand, positive self-talk can be a powerful tool for improving emotional regulation and coping strategies. There's even a study that revealed that athletes who use positive self-talk saw a 9% improvement in performance compared to those who use negative self-talk. So imagine if we applied that to our own lives and what a difference that can make as we face our own giants. So when we shift our thoughts from self-doubt to self-belief, from negative to positive, right? We're taking the first step in recognizing our intrinsic value and allowing it to shine through every aspect of our life. Just as David saw himself through God's eyes, we are called to do the same, right? So the world may see us as too small or not qualified or insufficient, but God sees you guys as a person of value with a plan and a purpose. Thank you. Thank you. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future." David's value was not found in others' opinions, but instead in God's purpose for him. And if we start seeing ourselves the way that God sees us, strong, capable, and worthy, then those giants will seem a lot smaller. Thank you. So just like David had to trust and wait in God's timing, it's important that every single one of you trust and wait in God's timing. A lot of times we want things too fast, and it's great to want to achieve things. It's fantastic, but when we one of my favorite analogies is if we know that we have $1 million that we're going to get next Friday, we're walking in expectancy, and then when we see somebody on the street find their $100,000 or their $200,000, we say that's really cute, but I'm getting my $1 million next week because I'm not worried about what they're getting, right? Yep. Right. Thank you. Therefore, it's important that we understand that when we have something planned for our lives and God has something planned for us, that those Goliaths will seem a lot smaller if we just trust in God's timing and God's purpose for us. Therefore, walking in faith means trusting that even the waiting has purpose, right? David spent years as a shepherd before becoming king, and in those years, he learned patience, humility, and courage, right? One of my favorite things to say, I think my dad has heard me say it a couple times, is when you pray for cake and God gives you the eggs, the butter, and the milk and the flour, don't walk out of the kitchen, right? That's right. That's right. That's right. So, when you ask God for humility and wisdom and patience and leadership, so when He puts you in those positions to be a leader and to be able to use those strengths that you prayed for, don't say no to those opportunities. Instead, step into them, right? It's what you prayed for, right? It's your purpose, right? Therefore, David's optimism wasn't blind hope. It was based on his faith and understanding of God's plan. And in the same way, when we lead with optimism, we shift our perspective from fear to faith, from comparison to collaboration. We realize that our potential isn't limited by others, but it is limitless in God. And David didn't see himself as competing with other soldiers around him. Instead, he was a part of a greater plan to bring victory to Israel. When we collaborate and uplift each other, we face our giants together. There's a psychologist named Alice Schluger who suggests that competition makes people constantly compare themselves and look to others for approval. And it's important to realize that a lot of times competition happens at the bottom and collaboration happens at the top. So when you understand your intrinsic value, you don't have to search for validation. You already know your worth. And 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, "Therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing." Therefore, let's be the ones who encourage and lift each other up, knowing we're all walking in our God-given potential. And I have one more analogy, well, actually two more analogies I want to give you guys. So a lot of times, a lot of us like to take walks, right? We leave our house and we say, okay, I'm going to walk from here to here, walk across the pond, and circle right back. So when we're walking, typically if we see, dogs or something behind a fence, right, a big fence, we're like, okay, sure, they're barking a lot, but I'm going to keep walking, right? Most of us, right? And those dogs that are barking can represent our own negative thoughts. They can represent negative outside opinions from society, social media, friends, family, whatever that may be. And those barking dogs on the walk represent 12,000 of those negative thoughts that you have. And it's important that when you get those thoughts or you're talking to people who might have a negative outlook, is that you just keep on moving, right? You see your goal, just keep walking, right? You know where you're going, you know what you're going to achieve, just keep walking. And lastly, one of my favorite quotes, I didn't come up with it. I heard it on social media. I don't know the guy's name. Wish I came up with it. It's a great quote. So, think about a bird landing on a branch, right? Does the bird trust the branch to hold its weight, or does the bird trust its wings, right? I've seen countless birds land on branches, but what I've never seen is a bird land on a branch and then the branch break and the bird fall and die, right? The bird trusts its wings. So therefore, when you're reaching for your goals, trust your wings, right? And tap into your potential. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Amen. 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 Can y'all give Lauren another hand clap? They love you, LP. Well, it just got good, and it's gonna get better. We have our next speaker. He goes by the name Cool T. He's real cool, but he brings some power. So, Cool T, you up, man?
Hey, hey. What's up, y'all? Dang, this is nice having a little microphone. Shoot. Wish I had one of these when I was teaching these kids, man. I'm telling you. All right. So, I want to start this off by speaking about the day that I was asked to come up here and talk. All right. So, I was approached to come up here and speak. It was like, hey, we want you and Lauren to come up and speak and let us know if you have any questions, if you have anything that you come up with any ideas and you just want to run past, anything like that, right? And so I said, all right, cool. In my mind, I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna think about it, and within like the next day or so, I'm gonna have something cooked up. I'm gonna be in the kitchen, be shoving with. And that one day turned into two. That 2 days turned into three. And next thing we know, or next thing I know anyway, it's that following Sunday, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I ain't got no ideas. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And then that Sunday turns into Monday, which then turns into Tuesday. And next thing we know, it's Friday night. And I'm sitting there like, dang, I still don't have any idea what I'm going to talk about. Friday night rolls over into Saturday. I'm spending the entire day Saturday thinking about different things. It takes me until Saturday night, last night, to really nail something down. And it's all because, so I was talking to my dad. No. I was talking to my dad, and he brought up a keyword that has been important in throughout my entire life: distractions. Right? Distractions. And we were having this talk, we were having this dialogue about things that distract us from God, right? And it hit me. This whole 2 weeks, reason why I haven't been able to come up with anything, I've been distracted. Like, it seems obvious, but when you really think about it, sit back and think about it, you're like, dang. A lot of these distractions are things that come in the form of stuff that you wouldn't really initially think of as a distraction, right? So here's how I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna break it down into 3 different categories, right? I'm gonna break it down into the first category that I have called junk food, all right? Then we got our second category called life. And the third category is the one that's gonna get you. So I'm gonna say that one for the end, right? So let's start with category 1. Category 1 is junk food, right? What do we know about junk food, right? It tastes good, right? What else do we know about junk food? It's not good for you, at least in large increments, right? When we overindulge. So, what do I mean by junk food as a distraction from God? I don't mean you sitting there eating potato chips while in the middle of your prayer and you like, Lord, thank you for the... No, I don't, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is those things that we use every day, like our phones, video games, TV and movies, right? Friends, right? All of those things can be good for us in the short term, right? Or can be good for us in moderation. I like that word, moderation. Sound good to say, feel good coming out the mouth. Moderation, right? All of those things are good when you don't overindulge, right? The four things that I listed: phone, video games, friends, and TV and movies. If I didn't have those in my life, I would not be the man that you see here today. I promise you. I would be a completely different person, wouldn't have the same sense of style, same sense of self. I learned so much from the games that I play, from the things that I watch, from the people that I surround myself with. Right. But it's when we let our phone and our desire to be on our phone override our desire to spend time with God. When you wake up first thing in the morning and the first thing you do, let's see what's going on Instagram. What Twitter talking about? Oh, I ain't know that. Celebrity news, you know? When that's a perfect time to start your conversation with God, right? Right. So that would be the equivalent of waking up next to somebody. Y'all both wake up at the same time. Y'all look over, see each other, and instead of having a conversation, instead of starting a dialogue, instead of saying good morning, how was your sleep? You ready for the day? You reach over, grab your phone, and don't say anything. You know? It's the same thing with the video games and the TV, right? You spend all your time playing a game. You spend all your time watching TV as sort of an escape from the world, right? When you can talk to God, right? And you can have Him help you create a world that you don't need an escape from. Y'all see what I'm talking? Hey, listen to me now. I'm gonna tell you something good. All right. and it's the same thing with our friends, right? You ever had that moment where your parents invite you to go do something, but your friends invited you to do something on that same day? And you say, you know, I see my parents every day. I live in the house with them. They not gonna miss me for real, you know? But my friends, like, you know, I see them every day too, but yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with them. That's the same sort of approach that we take when it comes to God, right? So we need to have sort of a mindset shift, a mindset switch, right? The phone, the video games, the friends, all of that is gonna be there. You got plenty of time. Plenty of time, right? And you have plenty of time to get right with God and talk to God and everything like that. But let me tell you something. The consequences of, you know, not indulging in the junk food versus the consequence of not having a relationship with God, if you really want to get down to it and weigh those options, I think you'll find this one over here outweighs it by a million times, right? So that's our first category, right? Junk food, right? And that's easy to think of as a distraction, right? You know, we think of those things as a distraction to more important things in our life every day anyway. But let's dip into that second category, the one that I'm calling life. In life, there will be a whole bunch of challenges, stressors, and even things that you might not even think of as a distraction that can pull you away from God, right? Things like bills, taxes, going to school every day, going to work every day, right? And you might think, oh, I'm staying on top of all this stuff. I'm doing everything that I need to do. I'm putting myself into my studies. I'm really putting my all into my work. And that's great. That's fantastic. Have you talked to God today, though? Or have you been so busy worrying about all of these earthly things that you have completely neglected your heavenly Father? Right? So those are things that you think of as like, man, that's important. I gotta go to work. I gotta go to school. I gotta pay these bills. But again, I ask you, what's the consequence of not paying the bills? What's the consequence of not going to school, not going to work, right? You're like, those are some heavy consequences. I could lose my house. I could lose my job. I could fail out of school, right? That means that I don't get the career I wanted. That means I'm not set up for life the way I want to be. That means X, Y, and Z, da, right? But then there's the consequence. There's the consequence of not having that relationship with God, right? You think about losing your job, right? You can get another job. You think about losing your place to live. You can get another place to live. You think about failing out of school. Guess what? You might have flunked out of this one, but there's hundreds of thousands of them all over the place, all over the country. You can start again. It's never too late. But can you do any of that without God? Come on, somebody. So, right. So we've covered the junk food, the things that we're like, okay, that makes sense, how that's a distraction. We covered life, where we're like, man, but is that really a distraction? You know, I'm just taking care of business, doing what I got to do. But yes, it can be if you overindulge. Now we're going to talk about one. Y'all might not like me for this one. I'm telling you. This third category I'm titling blessings. Now this is okay. Now this might be a relatable situation. Have you ever asked God for something so much? You know what? Matter of fact, let's even take God out the situation. Let's take God out the situation, right? Have you ever asked for something, right? You asked for a dog. Really? No, for real. You asked for a dog. And you've been asking for this dog, right? Every single day, your mind has been on this dog. And then Christmas time come around. You sitting there at the tree, at the door, you hear bark, 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 bark. You're like, man, who dog is that? You open up the door, dog run in. And Merry Christmas, it's your dog. Right? You've been asking for this dog. You're excited. You're like, oh, I got the dog. I got the dog dance. Oh, I got the dog. Right? And then a week later, every time that dog come around, man, move. Your mama asks you, did you feed the dog today? Oh, I forgot. Can you take the dog out? You playing the game? I guess. You've been asking for this dog. Every day you've been in your parents' face talking about, can I get a dog? I want the dog. Let me get the dog, right? And then you get the dog, and now all of a sudden you don't want the dog. That's the same thing that we do with God. That's the same thing we do with God. We sit there and we ask God day in and day out, Lord, bless me with this house. Lord, bless me with this car. Lord, bless me with this, with that, with the Prada shoes and the Lamborghini. Lord, bless me with all of this stuff. Then you get it. You get it, and one of two things happens. You forget about it because you got it. You feel like I ain't really have to work for it, so it don't really mean too much to me. Or you let that thing that God blessed you with, mind you, now this is your God. Now this is where you spend all of your time. This is what you worship. You spend every day outside washing that car. You every time you go somewhere, you getting more gas. You sitting there thinking, oh man, I gotta go to work extra hard. I gotta do all of this. I gotta X, Y, and Z so I can make sure I pay for this car, so I can make sure I keep this car. And you forget about the person who gave it to you in the first place. Does that make sense? How can somebody give you a gift? You take the gift and you say, this is a fantastic gift. Thank you for it. And then all they ask for in return is a phone call. They ask for a thank you card. I know sometimes we don't like writing them thank you cards. I know. During Christmas time. And you got all the time in the world. You got your gift. But you won't even spend 5 minutes on the phone saying, thank you. I really appreciate you. Or writing a card that says, thank you. I'm going to use it. I'm going to love it. Everything like that, right? That's all God is asking for. That's it. He's asking for 5 minutes of your time every day. If you can dedicate at least 5 minutes of your time, he will be satisfied. You know why? Because he wants to talk to us. He wants to have a relationship with us. Right? These blessings, these gifts, they are all a result of God having that desire to be in our lives and to enrich our lives. But if every time we get something, we sitting there not ungrateful, but forgetful and forgetting who gave it to us in the first place, and to give back in the way of just spending some time with him, now we mixed up. Now we messed up, right? And it goes back again to those consequences. You could think, oh, if I don't do this, if I don't take care of this gift, if I don't X, Y, and Z, I'm going to lose it, right? But if you don't spend time with God, it keeps going back to it, right? Them consequences. They'll get you every time. So, am I asking everybody in here to completely change your ways and think a whole new, different way right now, starting right at this moment? No, because I know that's not how it works. But I am saying, let's be a little bit more mindful, y'all. It all starts up here and in here. This is where we feel it, and right here, this is where we think and say, all right, I'm going to spend some time with God. Phone, put it away. Video games, turn them off. Friends, I'll see y'all later. Bills, they still going to be there when you get back. Can't get rid of them. So they'll be there. They ain't going nowhere. As a matter of fact, they're coming back next month. So, ain't going nowhere. All your other responsibilities, again, they ain't going nowhere. All right? That job, you got to go back to it again tomorrow. School, you got to go back to it again tomorrow. Right? You got plenty of time to focus on that stuff. The blessings, right? If God gave it to you, it's there. It's there, and it's gonna stay there. It's all right to take a second and take your eyes off of the blessing and bring them back to the person who gave them to you, right? So, in closing, oh, I've always wanted to say that. That sounds nice. In closing, we just need to be more mindful and to think about the person who gave us every single thing that we use to distract ourselves from him. That's all I got for you.
Can we thank God for the blessing of Lauren and Tyler? Can we thank God for the word? Whew. See, that's God right there. Yeah, yeah. That's wisdom right there. You don't have to be old to have wisdom. Solomon was young and asked for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom. You don't have to be elderly to have wisdom. Wisdom comes in all shapes, sizes, ages, generations, cultures. That's wisdom. And we thank God for the wisdom. We thank God for the blessing. But we thank God for the blesser. We thank God for the blesser.
That was good preaching. Just to let you all know that we did not we weren't just listening, but we see you. I just want to give you some notes of principles that I got from you all's talk. May I? Lauren, you said you're very passionate about what you do. You talked about battling our giants. You talked about courage, faith, and knowing your value. You talked about we shouldn't have wishful thinking, but we should base it on our faith. You used a big word about reiterating that thousands of negative thoughts that we experience each and every day. And you talked about self-worth, saying that it should be based on God's view of us. You didn't say it in these words, but God's view of us, not our view of the world. Yes, okay. You talked about attitude, that we should allow our attitude to determine our behavior and our success. And you talked about having a plan, and you used my favorite verse about God saying, I know the plans I have for you and our purpose. But what really got me, and I listened to, and I've been talking about this, you talked about unity. We are a body of faith, an organization of faith. And one of the things that we're going to see over the next few months is we're going to see an integrated worship service with not just the adults, but with the family-based ministries coming in every second and fourth, is that right? Every second and fourth Sunday, worshiping with us. Thank you all for that. Mr. Tyler, you talked about Bible study, you talked about leadership, you talked about actually distractions and the things that distract us. You said, first of all, junk food. We got that because we all go to McDonald's every Sunday, right? So you talked about how life can distract us because we allow ourselves to focus on our circumstances and not on our God. You talked about, the last one you talked about was blessings. That oftentimes we receive blessings, we put more focus on the blessings than we do on the blessor. And you left us with a charge, and that charge is that we allow our hearts and our minds to be changed so that we have a different mindset when we receive those things. So I want to say that you all are a blessing. You blessed our soul. You blessed our heart. We thank you for preparing. Now, I have a couple of